Hey, this is Pops. Let's talk about some reviews of movies that we didn't get to during Popstoberfest that, I don't know, creepy, spooky films, horror, I don't know, old vintage things, just things that just didn't work out in timing. The first is, yeah, really one I watched a while ago ahead of the sequel now, Black Phone. Black Phone was a film I really did enjoy back in 2021, but I hadn't really revisited. Supernatural thriller from Scott Derrickson, who had really succeeded very well in the horror genre before, came over to Marvel, did the first Doctor Strange movie, then kind of fell out of favor with them over how to handle the sequel, then came out with Black Phone. And it's a short story that was written by Joe Hill. You have this serial killer story, child abductions by the Grabber, played by Ethan Hawke. Little boy here, you see Finney. Finney is ultimately abducted as well. He has a strained relationship with his abusive dad, and something's going on with his little sister who has sort of like premonitions and visions. It's alluded to very much that it's similar to what had happened with their mother, who has passed away since. And the film is a very interesting dynamic of unpacking this mysterious black phone that's in this little room where Finney's being held. Some of the most iconic elements of the film are these masks. They come in different variations that mean different things. Ethan Hawke does a great job of sort of emoting and bringing different passions and emotions outside of the mask, and it's fantastic. And then, of course, there's Finney with the phone, and this is the Scott on production here. Yeah, it's filmed during COVID, and then here with his sister, and there's a full-on grabber. And the film really did hold up well of giving you sort of some unanswered supernatural stuff. The film is small in many ways, filmed mostly in this little soundproof basement, and then trying to work out between the dad, other victims, these flashback, these messages, helping Finney sort of like piece together solutions on how to escape, and then ultimately create like booby traps to capture the grabber and kind of get out, simultaneous to the sister having the right kind of vision, leading authorities to where the grabber could be found, and then a twist at the end. I'm not spoiling anything in this. I really want to try to keep this as fresh and clear as I possibly can for you, because the film really surprised me at the time. There's not a ton of weird CGI or anything like that. There's a lot of interesting elements that are kind of put here that, again, I think work really well. Makeup was done by Tom Savini, who is obviously phenomenal. I love everything that Tom's been working on. I think that people had underestimated this Blumhouse film. I think there's sort of like a lot of hits and misses. This is actually kind of a hit for me. I don't think it made a ton of money during the COVID fiasco, but enough to secure this sequel that's come out. Now, I haven't seen the sequel yet. I think overall, the film is done very, very well. It's kind of like has a frightening element without ever being like overly scary. I think it is unnerving. A lot of tension building and a lot of sort of like edge of your seat feeling. It didn't really get a lot of ton of accolades. I think it won maybe a Saturn Award, and maybe like, there wasn't there a Bram Stoker Award for achievement for writing, maybe. But overall, I don't think it got a lot of accolades. It felt like a story of the time. Like, it really felt like you were in the 70s. Like, the set design and the details there that Scott Derrickson kind of brings to life, I think is one of the high points. You feel so immersed in this film. You feel very much lost in the late 70s, so authentic with the details of costuming and elements. And Scott Derrickson is just a couple years older than me, so he really brought to life some stuff that had to have been from his childhood. Details that uh, you would have to know if you only lived through it. From the scary van phenomenon of that era to just the idea of kids that can be disappeared, all of those things work really well. Creepiness, eeriness, the way it's shot. I loved it. I think it was great. It also dealt with, the abusive parent type things of that era as well. Getting into a little bit of that. Great performances by the kids. I think they all did a fantastic job. And then, of course, like I said, I can't say enough about Ethan Hawke. He is phenomenal. Overall, I'm going to lean into a very strong score. I think I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. It has some contrivances. It does have some elements with how Finney does overcome, the timing of things, the way they kind of play out. It's a little too convenient in some ways, but I think a 3.5 out of 5 is very solid. it's worth a watch. If you've never seen it, I think it's fine. It's a nice, satisfactory film. It's not epic. It's not amazing or anything like that. It can feel a little bit convenient at moments, but overall, the tension building performances and the ambiance carry it. Very, very, very excited to watch it again. It's good. It was a good experience. So it shouldn't be a surprise that I went down the rabbit hole with vintage and old school Universal Studios monsters type stuff. So yeah, Dracula for sure. Dracula 1931 was a film that I kind of watch kind of every year in probably some facet of binging these Universal monster films, but I hadn't done a review or done anything on this channel. I thought it was worthy of kind of doing. I watched several that are in like a timeline of those earliest days, and what really struck me, I really try to look at this film a little bit differently, and that it has an interesting backstory that the studio really couldn't quite figure out how to bring the Bram Stoker story to the screen, and instead looked at Nosferatu and some other stuff to kind of get it right. And it does feel grand with the sets and the performance, the lighting, the cuts. And I also feel like it also kind of plays like a silent movie with sound. Like it's one of the very first ones. You feel like it's that first attempt at a Dracula film. And it doesn't always hold up well. They don't, they don't have tons of special effects or anything like that. It's not like this is a huge big budget movie like things are today. It did very well. It made Bela Lugosi really stand out in this iconic thing. And they were trying to figure out how to deal with plagiarism and copyright issues, all the stuff that had happened with Nosferatu. They just didn't want to deal with that. They wanted to pay for the rights. They wanted to do something that's interesting. And I will say there's been a lot of, even Christopher Lee criticized, the cape and the tuxedo and the hands. And yeah, it doesn't always age great. Some elements I think do well, but look at the set. Look at how beautiful everything feels. This definitely gives you the seduction and the horror of a monster that you would have just been in awe and shocked by in the 19th. I can't even imagine 1930. I can't even imagine it's nearly 100 years ago. Lugosi is phenomenal for what he was trying to accomplish, what the studio was trying to accomplish. I feel that so much has changed in the lore that it's hard to kind of get our head around the story. And most of the things I thought worked well. Edward Van Sloan as Van Helsing. I think Dwight Frye as Renfield. And that's kind of like the big lore of the film, is that it accomplished everything you'd want to move forward. And it gives you the things that you need to build on this and make a franchise out of, and that's what they did. And I definitely can see why. Entertaining. Yeah, it's a little dated. It has some issues that feel, pacing related in a lot of ways, but I also feel like it's so remarkably shot and done. And it's very fast. It's like 75 minutes, maybe. It's like an hour. It's less than an hour and a half for sure. So what am I supposed to say about that? So tight, so fast, gives you what you need, get in, get out. Super strong, super solid. I don't I don't totally know how to be critical of a movie that's that influential when it's that big a deal. I don't find it nearly as entertaining as I thought I would. So I'm gonna go 3.5 on them. I'm gonna downgrade just a tad. It's a 3.5 for a 4. Maybe my mood wasn't right. Maybe some of the other movies I watched kind of tainted that, but that's how I felt anyway. So no shame, just honest. That's how I felt, and go from there. So I've talked about Dracula. I did a review earlier this year on Wolfman, so it seems only fair to give Frankie some time. That's right. Yeah, Frankenstein 1931 came out later that same year as the Dracula movie. And yeah, Boris Karloff's legacy is sort of born in. Really, really one of my favorites. I think I prefer Frankenstein over the other creatures, and I'm sorry to say, but I felt like the man playing God stuff works. Karloff is just incredible. The makeup by Jack Pierce is just iconic. I think that James Whale just delivered something that was just phenomenal. He just took everything that was done well with Dracula, and it's even better. Like you have so many key elements of lore that come out of this, the look, the feel. I mean, this was the challenge of Hammer Horror and years later. Like, how do I do Frankenstein and not look like this? But look at just, you're immersed in Victor's lab. You really, really are. Like it's crazy. I think I had forgotten like how many things have evolved over time where, it's not Victor. Victor's the friend. His name is actually Henry Frankenstein, and the monster is just a monster. And you have Edward Vine Sloan returning as another doctor, and you have the assistant there as Fritz. And I admit, I kind of forget sometimes about Fritz and Fritz's demise and how it all plays out with the creature and kind of how it works. But I love it. The little girl stuff's still very moving, very emotional. Obviously, the It's Alive stuff is what's become iconic. The story is pretty much the story, and you have a nice sequences that piece it all together and why it becomes timeless. Again, a very fast movie, really short. I also forget that these are less than an hour and a half. You can watch four of these movies, these iconic Universal movies, in just a few hours, like 3 hours. Like it's crazy. That's phenomenal. So yeah, I have a great time. I prefer this over Dracula, really do. It feels like we're moving towards a more advanced filmmaking, better sets, better designs, better character developments, more emotion. Everything plays out better for me in Frankenstein than Dracula. So I will definitely lean into that 4 out of 5 stars for Frankenstein over Dracula. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going to go with that. I think Bride of Frankenstein is probably the most fascinating of these early films. It comes along a little bit later, 1935. I think that what you get with James Whale here is he knew how to move everything forward. He has an interesting intro with basically Mary Shelley saying, "Listen, I'm not done telling these Frankenstein stories. There's actually another story to be written." And it's about, the man playing God type stuff. They kind of shift that Hans, the father of the girl that drowned, wants to see the monster's bones, and then the monster has survived. The monster attacks, kills him, and the monster is still out there. So that was great. I think it's great. Henry is thought to have died, returned to the fiance. There's alarm about the monster, and Henry moves and realizes, so he's like, that's like a coma, basically, right? Again, under 90 minutes, moves super fast, and you have now the sequence of events where the monster is sort of like evolving through its emotions, and it's trying to figure out, hey, it could possibly want to learn and develop and become something different. And I think that everything is great to see return. Like it feels fantastic, right? I feel like the Mary Shelley character returning as the actual bride is just great. I mean, it's incredible. Like Elsa Lancaster is barely in this movie. I think if you don't know, she's really in just a very final few moments. The creature goes off. This is where you get the idea of the blind person reaching out to Frankenstein with empathy because he can't see he's a monster. So there's no prejudice. Teaches him to speak, teaches him not to be afraid of fire as much. And then you, of course, get the selfishness of the monster. Now, like, I want this woman for me. And they're like, well, wait, this is not how this is going to work because she's freaking out. She panics. She screams. She's like, oh my God, you're a monster. I don't want to be with you. So the ironies and the layers of everything that's built in the previous films, both Dracula, and other stuff too, kind of come to a head with, I think, what is probably their best film. Like, this is probably the best. It has some campy and eccentric elements for sure, but it is also intense and also so much more human than the other ones because it's dealing with this range of emotions that Karloff delivers for the monster. It's very real. It's kind of touching. I love the fact that the screenwriters really knew how to make things macabre. We have great set pieces and all that, but it also just like, an identity crisis. What am I going to be? What do I want? And of course, the playing God stuff is still going to work there. So, Bride of Frankenstein is probably the best. I think it's just really smooth with how it all kind of flows really well with a great ending. How, the tragedy and how things are going to play out at the very end is 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 just really great. I think it's superior than the other movies. It may not be what everybody wants to hear, but the monster coming down the steps, he killed Carl. He sees his, and then he's like, "Oh, she hate me," like everybody, like what I mean, like oh man, it's so crazy. That's crazy. And then of course, you know, go live, go live. Go live. You go, Henry. You can go. The monster's like, you can go. It's okay. We need you dead. He kind of keeps the bride back. Like the monster changing the rules, changing the dynamics, and having the wherewithal to be like, we are truly monsters and don't deserve to be here. And ooh, heavy stuff. Great stuff. Closer to perfection. I'm going to lean to a 4.5. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. 4.5. I guess if we did like 20 point scale, I'd go to like 19, like a 9.5. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, it's, it's, it's near perfection. Again, it is a little old. It does have some dated elements to it, but again, it's under 90 minutes. You're in and out. Have a great experience, great story, great performances. Oh man, the character designs are just epic. I mean, it's become iconic for a reason. So it's awesome. Great stuff. All right, I know that I've talked about 28 Days Later previously. I know that I mentioned it a lot in the zombie realm. I'm not a huge fan of the zombie stuff. I've been critical of Zack Snyder's work in that area too. But I will admit that 28 Days Later is something special. And 28 Days Later is special because it made the slow moving brains, I'm after brains type zombie into something different, right? And I know technically it's an infected creature and it's not the zombie by the same thing, but man, I tell you what, 28 Days Later was a shocking film to see in a theater. When these things came alive, this feeding frenzy that they become on, you're like, what is going on? Cillian Murphy waking up from his coma. The world's already gone through this outbreak. This epidemic is everywhere. Great cast. Look at Brandon Gleeson. Here we have Eccleston here on the left. So, and what her name is? No, Naomi Harris. Yeah, she's great. So phenomenal stuff that works itself through Danny Boyle. It's a cast. It it's interesting because it's like a fear virus outbreak. It's more like a contagion movie than supposed to be a zombie movie, but it was a zombie movie. Sorry, that's not what you guys want to hear. Maybe people are like, "Oh, it's not a zombie movie." Yeah, it was. It was a zombie movie. It's exactly how it played out. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be, but it was. I love the fact that it was also rooted in pretty real. Like the animal rights activists are trying to save these monkeys that are being infected with this rage virus. Oh, we'll just let them out. And you see this stuff happen all the time where good intentions of we don't want animals to suffer and stuff. Because I've worked in that field, I've worked in research and development before. It is tough. But I'll tell you this somebody who's been in it, no one's in there wanting those animals to suffer or anything like that. You're in there with a purpose, trying to make good on whatever you're researching. So the film does a good job of giving you a believable setup, believable survival scenarios, some great visuals of how to make all that work. All the posters and stuff that's very generic. I was very disappointed, but look at these shots. It's just great having all that work. I loved it so much. I love he just doesn't know what to do. He finds a soda machine, and this is where he's attacked for the first time. Great shots of everything. And then you get to the second half of the movie where you end up with like the soldiers that are there trying to you assume you're in a stronghold. You assume you're into something that is safe, and quickly we discover that they're not. They're going to use these female survivors into a slavery things for the troops, giving them some sort of future so the human race can survive. It's awful. They're more evil than the beast, the animal zombies, because they know better. Like they're just being malevolent monsters. And it was a great journey to have something like that that's so opposite to what you expected. Now, it does feel like it's two films kind of put together, right? Because you have the survival elements in the first half of the film, the tragedy, the realization of that tragedy. Jim's lost his parents, and that was heartbreaking with how that's handled. You see the survival stuff when Brandon Gleeson's character gets infected, how everyone carry on. You have the false hope when we run into the soldiers, how everything's going to work. And at the end of the day, I think that the best elements are the survival part of the film. I mean, the soldier stuff is the weaker part. And that's where it does get tricky, right? Because you see Jim he's in between the monsters, right? He's drifting closer to these animal monsters than he was the person that was kind of like a soft, weak, meek kind of man in the early part of the film. He's evolved and changed so much going through this crazy journey. And it makes for just a fantastic film, a fantastic zombie film. Sorry to call you that, guys. It really is. So I like it kind of know it's open ended. ending in a lot of ways. Like you feel like it's going to carry on for more. I'm not a huge fan of the sequel, and I couldn't watch the new one. I really want to watch the new one, but I only heard like crazy, bizarre things about it. So at some point, it'll be streaming, and like there'll be an October in a year or two, and I'll just watch all three of them again or something in order. But I think Alex Garland is a decent enough writer. He gets enough things right than he gets wrong with this film, but I also don't think he gets over his skis a little bit with many other things that he does. So strong rewatch for me. Maybe not as strong as when I first saw it, but it feels very solid. So I'll lean into a 3.5 on this one. It is an enjoyable experience. I enjoy 28 Days Later. I don't say it makes a yearly doesn't make a yearly rotation for me, but it's pretty consistent. Like it's something that we watch. I watch. If it's not every year, it would it'd be every other year. It'd be it's pretty regular because it's to me it's one of the most enjoyable rewatch experiences of these type of creatures and stuff. So that's kind of why I do the rewatch of that. So that's my take on that. 28 Days Later. All right, next up is one that I might disappoint you or upset you, and I'm really sorry in advance, but I'm also not sorry. The 1948 comedy horror. That's right. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. It's sort of like a staple. Mrs. Pops loves this one. Mrs. Pop wants to watch this one every single year. It sort of makes the rotations nearly every year. I think sometimes we miss it, but if she gets to pick, this is usually on that list of three or four that she wants to watch every single year. You get all of the greats coming back from Lon Chaney, Bela Lugosi, and Boris Karloff. Notably absent from this one, it's a little disappointing to have to lean on Glenn Strange, but hey, it's okay. He does a great job as the monster. But it's really about Abbott and Costello. In particular, it's about Costello. Now, the thing for me is I have a problem because the story's fine. They're clerks, and the Whack Museum is getting these creatures, and technically they're not actually. They're going to be brought to life. You can see here Dracula bringing him to life, secret agenda type stuff. And it's all about gags. It's all about goofs. It's all about that kind of thing. And meanwhile, Larry Talbot, the Wolfman, is trying to warn them, trying to say, "Hey, listen, it's all this stuff's going on." And the story centers around them trying to get with these ladies and how all that kind of works. And I will say that the studio was trying to figure out how to capitalize on everything. They're nearly broke when they were doing so. Let me back up and say part of my problem is I know the backstories. I know too much about how all of this kind of came to be. To me, it's just shocking. Like a decade of this Universal monster success, they've squandered it to the point where they're nearly bankrupt. It's still just crazy. This is why we know nothing's ever changing. They've always been like this. They're these Hollywood moguls, man, they're bad with money. They're greedy. And the problem is, by the time we get to before this movie, I believe, right? This movie is 1948. Is that right? I got that right? Yeah, 1948. So a couple years prior to this, they're already, Abbott and Costello are bickering regularly. They're ready to break up. They're barely together at this point. The studio is just basically trying to cash in. And the problem I had when I rewatched this movie is the fact that I see it for what it is. It's a vanity project for Lou Costello. So poor Abbott, he really doesn't have much to do. He doesn't even get to have really fun straight man setup stuff to do very often in this movie. It's really kind of a letdown. And in fact, the creatures kind of come and go. And I think we remember this movie more fondly for nostalgia's sake than actually the content of the movie. Like it's just more zany hijinks that almost feel like a Scooby Doo episode or something. And there are some great moments. Like I love the fact that we have the mistakes that kind of make it way through this film. Like no, they didn't redo mistakes that happened. So there's a scene with the monster and he's bursting through at Costello. And when he does, he punches through the door, actually hits him in the face because he was marked in the wrong spot, stuff like that. There's the scene where the monster throws the girl, and there's a thing that happens, and it breaks the line. So he breaks it. The actor Glenn Strait breaks his foot. So Lon Chaney Jr. has to play the monster for a shot. There's a shot of him. So there's little mythology and backstory that is stuck in my brain and it kind of messes it up for me. And it's not that I don't enjoy it. It's a super pleasant movie to watch, but I can't hold it in as high as esteem as probably most people out there do. And I'm sorry about that. I'm actually kind of sad by that because I feel like it's a fun movie. It's heartwarming in places. It has enough of the creatures and fun stuff that you like to see. out of these monsters and the stuff out of it. So, but I feel like it also spawned a new sub genre of them with Universal now putting them with Abbott and Costello, where they meet Boris Karloff in The Killer. They meet Invisible Man. They meet Invisible Man is actually in the Stinger piece where he's on the boat, voiced by Vincent Price. It's a Doctor Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and there's a mummy one. So that's fine. I mean, I don't know. I think it was enjoyable, but I feel like it also becomes comedic and just kind of mocking the stuff that was supposed to be serious in the horror genre. So 4 out of 5, probably a little bit lower than some of you. Some of you guys have this higher. I know there's people that just watch this every single year. They love it. They live by it. Mrs. Pops loves it. She'd be like, it's at least a 4.5. Why is it not a 5? That's what I would get. I totally understand, but it's also just goofy, silly nonsense stuff, which isn't a bad thing exactly, but it's also just not a great thing either, if that makes sense. So, anyway, that's my general take on it. Okay, I mentioned that I did Wolfman 41 earlier this year, so I didn't really want to watch that one again. I gave it kind of a fair review at the time. So instead, I wanted to watch Werewolf of London from 1935, a film I've not seen probably since college. I had not watched this one. It definitely didn't ring a bell. It vaguely was more familiar as the movie went on, which means, yeah, I did watch it back in the day, but it didn't strike enough of a chord. Henry Hill plays the title character, the werewolf. The cast is very solid. Jack Pierce again returns as doing iconic makeup work. The problem is Henry Hill does not want his whole face and everything covered up all the time, so they have different strategic ways of doing this. They kind of have a completely different mythology surrounding Henry Hill's character as an explorer, Dr. Glendon, and they're out searching for this plant, this special plant that is extremely rare, nourished by the moon. He's attacked, which obviously is a werewolf attack, and it centers around him and this other botanist working to keep this little plant alive. And it turns out that it has like an antidote power over this sort of wolfman virus that he's experiencing. And it works out fine. The movie felt more small than I expected. Like it feels like so much more studio work and just these random exterior shots. But you can see he's obviously not disappeared in the makeup as much as what we see with Lon Chaney Jr. later on. Here you see him without makeup, with makeup. But it's fine. It was good. He was solid, way more solid than I thought. This is the other guy that's a werewolf. He plays it kind of a little more straight. He was actually really interesting because of how he plays it. And then of course they end up in this big fight near the end of the movie. It it was one of these things where I can see why it took a couple more years to get it right. Like it's not quite there, and it's partly because of the actor and the drama from the studio, right? Because Jack Pierce wasn't allowed to do what he wanted to do. He didn't, this dude didn't. This dude did not want to be in the makeup chair for hours and hours and hours. He didn't want his face covered up. There's all this fighting about it. Pierce is probably ticked off. Probably fought with the studio. Studio is going to fight. Everybody wants their thing done. Everybody wants to just make some money. And well, at the end of the day, they made a solid film. I don't think it's a great film. I think it's sort of okay. You know what I mean? I feel like it's good, but it doesn't it hmm, it's tricky because it has some really good moments and it also has some things that are just like, it's kind of melodramatic, kind of bland. Some good location shots of some general concepts that are good, but overall, it's definitely a lot more of a letdown than Wolfman and some of the other stuffs for sure. So on this one, I'm gonna have to go a little on the harsh side and go 2.5 out of 5. It's kind of like a midland. It's like that 2.5 to 3. Depends on how you want to deal with, some of the effects and some of the different things that definitely felt dated. It it's not bad, but it's not great. And it's that kind of thing. It's like it didn't seem like it held its own as well as some of the other films do. So yeah, Wolfman of London, 1935 is sort of like, maybe it's your thing. You've never seen it. I totally get it. But, you know, yeah. All right, the next film, let's jump ahead to something modern. I hadn't done anything modern really. I mean, obviously, I guess there's some that are modern, but okay. Every year, there's a little bit of a, I don't want to say a fight, but there's a debate like, how does Ghostbusters fit into my Halloween viewing? This is the thing with Mrs. every year. And she's like, I watch Ghostbusters every year, sometimes multiple times. So it came to the point where I wanted something kind of lighthearted. We wanted to watch something together. And it came down to some things that were on and this is what she picked, Afterlife, which many people are kind of divided on this. And I think that everyone's divided because the follow up to this was so bad. And I totally concur. That being said, I still enjoy Afterlife. The Ghostbusters have been gone. Nobody remembers them really. You have this ancestors of Egon's kids, and they meet. Here's podcast, this little schoolmate that she meets, and you have this sort of like they're drawn out to the middle of nowhere with Paul Rudd's a school teacher. They find an actual trap in the house, and it's like, oh wait, he's actually a Ghostbuster. Here's a creepy old house. This is the wife, the mom, and you have this sequence of events that kind of like create like the new Ghostbusters. And overall, I had a good time with it, and I always did. I always have a good time with it, and it's a shame that the film is sort of tainted after taking so long to get to this point. But at the end of the day, there's so much nostalgia and callback stuff. Like for instance, this is they're turned into dogs. And what are they going to do? Oh, the Keymaster and yeah. So we're going to get everything. We get Gozer. We get a little bit of everything, right? We get not Dave Chappelle here on the left, which if you understand my references here from our Halo watch here on the channel, you'd understand. But yeah, Bokeem Woodbine plays the sheriff. We have a good time watching Afterlife, and I think what the problem for me is it gives me just enough of what I want. I'm not I'm not super impressed. This is obviously the Stranger Things star. I'm just not impressed with him. I think he's just exceedingly overrated. They try to make him into something that he's not. He doesn't lean into. He also sings. He's in a band. He's probably more obsessed with being in a band because it's like his nerdiness isn't as typecast. Doesn't want to do that though. He doesn't want to like be the Harold Ramis. So, you know what I mean? He doesn't want to be that guy. And I really can't stand her, Celeste O'Connor. No offense, Celeste. You're fine enough in parts of it, but overall, not a very good character or role. There's gags and stuff at his expense. I think they did a good job of trying to capture some teen drama, teen angst, coming of age type stuff. So because I didn't dislike any of that, I never have. And this watch kind of made me revisit that. I know the biggest complaint I had that I think was legit was, you had McKenna Grace as Phoebe. I think she was phenomenal in this role. I just feel like this is not something that she can kind of keep doing. She's going to age out of this kind of look and feel anyway, if she hasn't already. But it does feel like it can be slow. And people wanted something like Ghostbusters. They wanted more humor too. They wanted something really, really fast and upbeat and all of that. This film did not deliver that at all. These are not comedians Paul Rudd's fine, but Paul Rudd is mostly Paul Rudd. And I will say, it got carried away. Look, listen, it's not going to be a perfect film when this is what they decided to do. Bring back the stupid marshmallow gag. Like this was just so cheap and did not age well. It's some of my least favorite things. I don't mind the knockoff Slimer. I don't mind some of those things in all of this. I hate the fact that I like the fact that she calls Ray and Ray's there still holding down the old occult store. And I like the fact that there's some exchange, but the fact that they just show up at the end of the movie at exactly the right time, Bill Murray's kind of phoning it in. Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. They should feel like jerks, man, for how they even thought about Egon when they figure out what's actually been going on. And this is why the sequel to this, The Frozen Empire, is such a complete garbage film because it just makes no sense. Like you figure out that Egon was trying to save the world again. You guys treat him like crap. You're mad at him about taking all the stuff. And reality is, you guys are the jerks in this story, not Egon. So strong 3 out of 5. Maybe a 3.5. How do I not give it the extra little bump? Because I watch it every year. I love Ghostbusters so much, more than I even should. I totally get that it's sort of like, I don't want to say overrated, but in a lot of ways, it's one great film. This is an okay film. I don't really care for Ghostbusters 2 much at all. I think it's mid. And then Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is an abomination. I hate it so much. I can't stand it. I just liked all of it. The nostalgia, the heartfelt stuff with Harold Ramis and the ghosts and all that at the end's fine. Gozer's fine. Yeah. So let's just start mid. Then we can slide a little bit. And some people, I think, yeah, if you're expecting the 1984 humor and all the goofy, yeah, obviously I get the letdown. Totally get it. But it feels so well connected to that first film. It feels like this would be a continuation of the story and not a stretch. Frozen Empires feels like, man, they missed the mark, man. They didn't know what they're doing. So, anyway, that's my general take on it. We definitely enjoyed watching Ghostbusters Afterlife. So, for sure. So let me wrap there and just say, listen, I had a few other movies that I watched. I didn't really do a video on. I'll just make a quick little statement about some of those. For instance, I watched Murders in the Rue Morgue, which was fine, not what I expected. It's odd and strange and not very good. Like, yeah, I don't know. It was. I'm interested because there's been other versions of that story, and I think for me, because I was trying to research this, like, what is the story here? What are we trying to do? And I feel like it's a film of its time where you're just having this, interesting concept that's being talked about and this is what's happening. But this, you know, ape research type stuff, evolution type stuff, just vanity project for Bela Lugosi. I don't know. It was all right. I did not enjoy it very much. I thought it was like just, ugh, it was all right. Then there was also the Boris Karloff, The Dark Old House, which is another film of its time. And I kind of felt like, what am I supposed to be getting out of this movie? Because these characters are terrible. And I feel like what they're going for is comedy horror. James Whale sort of like mocking some horror films and stuff, which is weird because it's 1932. It's not like this was a huge thing that had been out there a lot, but he's mocking society. He's mocking anyway. Gloria Stewart, who is obviously the famous old lady in Titanic, she stars alongside Boris Karloff, who plays a mute named Morgan, who also is a drunk. And there's all sorts of weird character elements of who's going to be with who and who's going to get with who and how it's going to work out. And I don't know, man. I was bored. I always felt like everything was flat to me. It never felt particularly great. And I know there's critics that just love this movie. They think it's such a great horror comedy. All right. I mean, it's parodying a lot of elements. I get it, but maybe it just hasn't aged well enough for me. I'm just missing some elements on it. So didn't really do a video on that either. I watch The Thing every year, multiple times. I've watched it twice in the last 4 weeks. So I'm not going to do another video on The Thing. I've done stuff on The Thing. We'll probably do more on The Thing. Yeah, The Thing is one of my favorite movies of all time. Definitely this time of year. So I watched Thing twice. An absolute masterpiece, a gem of fun for me. So I didn't do anything on that. I guess the other one that's last worthy of note that I should at least mention that I watched that I didn't do anything on would be The Shining. I watched The Shining. I hadn't watched The Shining in years and years and years. I really felt like I should watch it, and then I felt like I should watch Doctor Sleep, which I couldn't get to. So I'm like, The Shining to me doesn't work. I'm bored. I don't really enjoy it. I think Nicholson is fine. I'm always sort of like distracted by Shelley Duvall as like, she's treated as like a starlet, like a really attractive superstar. I don't understand. I know it's not like the book. Doctor Sleep bridges the gap between the two things. Maybe it's also like the fact that the kid's so creepy. What they do with the kid is creepy. I don't know. I still enjoy it. I get it. I understand it. It's a better film than I like, if that makes sense. Like I can get it as a critic and say, oh yeah, it's a great film. And also as a person, I'm like, yeah, not my thing. So didn't do a video on that either. So movies I didn't do reviews on. That's kind of what comes at the end. I didn't do anything on some of the stuff the kids watch. They wanted to watch the Hotel Transylvania movies like multiple times. Well, that was very strange. They actually wanted to watch the second one a lot. Now, they're fine little movies for what they are, but not to the fact that I wanted to sit through them multiple times. So I did not sit through them multiple times, but the kids did. I thought that was interesting that the legacy of Hotel Transylvania is carrying on and they're still watching it, which is a good sign for those movies. But I was very surprised by that, if you will. So some movies that I had watched, didn't do reviews on, I at least enjoyed, but Thing is a masterpiece. I mentioned that. Shining, I would probably go mid for me. As a critic, it's probably a 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 for me. As a person, I'm not watching it again. It's like, ugh, I'm not watching. 2.5 for me. Like, I just don't enjoy it. Not my thing. Hotel Transylvanias are very solid. They're like this mid three on the first one, maybe 2.5 on the second one. They're just fun, goofy. Adam Sandler, all of his friends making gags and jokes and stuff. It's fun for kids. Kids laugh at it. They're having a good time. And it's trying to have some nice heart elements that I enjoy. So yeah, it was fine having it on. Didn't know what to say in a review. Probably should have done a review right away. Would have had more to say that would have made it for a video, but instead you're getting this, the amalgam of stuff I did do videos on. There you go. You got that too. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed our October. You enjoyed Popstoberfest, some of the different stuff. Feel free to give me some comments and thoughts, feedback. If you're watching this after the fact, just know that it's not stuff I do kind of different times of the year. It is kind of fun to organize the year like this. I probably need to do a better job around some of the other times of the year to have more focused content like this because it made things move quickly and it was fun. It was fun to interact with other folks. And hopefully I can do that and broaden it even more. So thanks for watching, everybody. I am Pops.